Hello, welcome to the self learning platform by Dr. Sushma Singh. Today we are going to start Unit 15 Classical Liberalism with topic Ideology of Classical Liberalism Views about Man, Society, Economy, and State. The tradition of classical liberalism was further extended by Bentham's pupil J.S. Mill. Mill's essay on liberty, which has long been held to be the finest and the most moving essay on liberty, is a powerful and an eloquent plea for liberty of thought, liberty of expression, and liberty of action, not merely against the interference of the state, but also against the pressure of society, public opinion, and conventions in the affair of the individual. The liberty he sought to defend was the liberty of the individual to develop, enrich, and expand his personality. As such, it is not surprising that he pleads that the individual should be left free to realize his own interest the way he likes, provided he does not interfere with the similar freedom of others. He defines liberty as pursuing our own good in our own way so long as we do not attempt to deprive others of their or impede their efforts to obtain it. So defined liberty is a means to an end, the end being one's own good. He further writes the only part of the conduct of anyone for which he is amenable to society is that which concerns others. In the part which merely concerns himself, his independence is of right absolute. Over himself, over his body and mind, the individual is sovereign. The only purpose for which power can rightfully exercised over any member of the civilized community against his will is to prevent harm to others. Mill divided the activities of the individual into two parts, self regarding and other regarding. The self regarding action may include those matters which affect the individual himself, having no concern with others, while the individual was to be free in doing those things which affected himself alone. His independence was restricted in those cases which had a bearing on others. Society has no right to use the force or compulsion in regard to matters which affect the individual alone and have no concern with others. In the self regarding functions, Mill included the inward domain of consciousness demanding liberty of conscience in the most comprehensive sense, liberty of thought and feeling, absolute freedom of opinion and sentiment on all subjects, practical or speculative, scientific, moral, or theological, liberty of tastes and pursuits of framing a plan of our life to suit our own character of doing things without impediments from others, fellow creatures, so long as they do not harm others. liberty of combination among individuals, freedom to unite for any purpose not involving harm to others. On the whole, Mill's argument rested upon a negative concept of freedom. He objected to social control over what he regarded as the self regarding activities of the individual because he regarded all restraints as evil. According to him, the individual is not responsible to society for his action in so far as they concern the interest of no person other than himself. He believed that the social progress depended upon the giving to each individual the fullest opportunity for the free development of his personality. He was convinced that the human personality can develop and expand only in an atmosphere of freedom. From it, it is necessarily follows and that freedom consists in the absence of restraints. The best thing for the individual is that he should be left to pursue his good in his own way. Although the artificial division between the self regarding and other regarding functions of the individual was not accepted by the later generation of liberal writers like Green, Hobhouse, Lindsay, Lasky, etc. The importance of Mill lies in his emphasis on the fact that the social and political progress depended largely on the potentialities of the individual and his free choice. Mill was fully convinced that any increase in the power of the state, irrespective of its form, was antithetical to the liberty of the individual, and the most valuable element in human life was spontaneous choice. Anything which by a compulsory power diminishes the scope of that choice, and this infringes upon liberty. Similarly, his plea for freedom of speech, thought, and expression became fundamental tenets of liberal philosophy. We can conclude this discussion on classical liberalism by the view of L.T. Hobhouse. In his book Liberalism, Hobhouse pointed out certain basic principles of liberalism. According to him, these principles were evolved as a consequence of the struggle of rising middle class against feudalism, aristocrats, and clergymen. In short, our principles were personal liberty. The essence of liberalism lies in individual liberty. This doctrine covered several rights and duties of the individual. It was to secure freedom of speech, discussion, writing, freedom of thought, and faith. The American Declaration of Independence, the English Bill of Rights, and the Habeas Corpus Act, the Petition of Rights were all meant to secure these freedoms. Personal liberty also meant that there should be no discrimination on grounds of caste, color, creed, sex, race, and economic position. Civil liberty, according to this principle, the government must be conducted not by the arbitrary will of anyone, individual or class, but by law. This was necessary to counteract the evil of oppression of the kings and feudal lords and churchmen. Milton's libertarian doctrine declared that all human beings are by nature born free and endowed with reason and the right to work out their own destiny, and that the rulers must exercise their authority under the restraints of law. Similar was the declaration of Jefferson that all men are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights to secure for which governments are instituted, and which appears sustainably as an expression of the first principle of liberalism. Economic liberty, it means that the individual should have the right to property and contact. This freed the individual from economic restraints, and economic liberty for classical liberalism was the acceptance of the policy of laissez-faire, which meant that the state should intervene as little as possible in the economic affair. Political liberty and popular sovereignty, they mean that all men should have rights and all must be enabled to enjoy equal opportunities. These two concepts were described by Hobbes as the crown and glory of liberalism. The doctrine of popular sovereignty was stressed by the Declaration of Independence in America. It meant sovereignty of the people. It vested in them the supreme power of political decision and action. Concepts of political freedom and popular sovereignty led to many far-reaching consequences and formation of principles such as universal suffrage, direct election of public officials, public accountability of governors, annual parliaments, subordination of the executive to the legislature, and last but not least, classical liberalism also included domestic freedom, administrative and racial liberty, and international liberty. It was opposed to the use of force as an instrument of rational policy or militarism. It was primarily because capitalism needed peace and international cooperation for the free flow of goods from one country to another, and hence it pleaded for the removal of all political and other barriers which stood in the way of efficient exploitation of world resources. Here we want to wind up today's lecture. Thank you so much for your attention.